Welcome to Asian Music Idol, your ultimate backstage pass to the hottest stars and stories in Asian pop.
Welcome to the deep dive. So today we're really getting into someone whose impact, well, it seems to operate on a whole different level in music, culture, the industry. We're talking to Wang Yibo.
That's right. We've been digging into this really fascinating analysis. It's titled Wang Yibo, the Collaborator and Cultural Catalyst. And it really makes you rethink what an artist's influence can even mean today.
Yeah, definitely. And our goal here for this deep dive is to kind of peel back those layers. We really want to unpack why this analysis is calling him a game changer. And maybe even more interesting, why they call him a filter. What does that actually mean, for music, for culture, and I guess for you listening and consuming it all?
Exactly. I mean, collaboration, it's everywhere now, right? You almost have to collaborate. But this analysis argues pretty compellingly, I think, that some artists aren't just doing collaborations.
They're changing the game itself.
Yeah, they're fundamentally reshaping the dynamics, how it all works.
And the core idea here from the analysis is that Wang Yibo is, well, one of these really rare artists. That his name on something isn't just, another feature. It's described as a stamp of credibility, versatility, and power.
Right. The analysis really pushes this idea that when he gets involved, something just shifts.
How so?
Well, it says the energy changes, the actual creative product starts to evolve, sometimes in ways you wouldn't expect, and, maybe most importantly, the industry sits up and takes notice.
So it's more than just hype or a marketing boost.
Much more. It's like a signal that something significant is actually happening creatively or culturally.
Okay, let's dig into that. The analysis gives examples, right? Let's maybe start with the music. That track, Wu Dang with Rich Brian, really stood out.
Oh, yeah. That was, wow, such an unexpected pairing, but totally electrifying. And the analysis makes it clear this wasn't just some symbolic, let's bring stars together thing. It was really strategic.
Strategic how? Rich Brian's already huge, pushing boundaries himself.
Exactly. But according to this analysis, he didn't just pick Yibo for, name recognition. He deliberately chose him to send a message, saying, look, this combination, this vibe, this is what modern Asian cool looks like right now.
Huh. So Yibo brings something specific to the table then.
Totally. The analysis uses words like mystique, precision, and street credibility. And you see it in the video, right? That fusion of, really complex martial arts moves with hip-hop. It wasn't just dancing.
It was a statement.
It was a statement, yeah. He elevated the whole message. The analysis puts it really strongly, saying his part signified that East is not just rising, it's reinventing itself.
Yeah.
That's pretty impactful for a collaboration.
Wow. Okay, so it's about defining a cultural moment, not just boosting a track.
Precisely. And that influence isn't just in one-off tracks. The analysis looks at his role on shows like Street Dance of China, too. And there, it paints him less as just a performer or even a creator and more as a curator.
A curator.
Yeah.
As a team captain on the show, what does that mean, practically speaking?
Well, yeah, mentoring was part of it. But the analysis stresses it was more about him actively selecting and really championing dancers, choreographers, even specific music choices that were maybe more underground.
So bringing things into the light that wouldn't normally get that kind of platform.
Exactly. Highlighting, as the analysis puts it, raw, untapped Asian talent. Names and sounds that hadn't really seen that kind of primetime exposure before.
And did that influence extend behind the scenes?
Apparently, yes. The analysis suggests he was quite involved, pushing for more artistic freedom for his team, demanding innovation, really facilitating these wild genre fusions. We saw funk with Chinese opera, trap beats.
Break dancing with traditional elements. Yeah, I remember seeing some of that.
Right. And the result, according to the analysis, wasn't just a popular TV show. It actually shifted how mainstream China viewed street culture. That's a massive cultural impact, stemming, at least partly, from his curatorial choices.
That's huge. And I guess that kind of cultural influence must translate into, well, power within the industry itself, especially in China's entertainment world.
Oh, absolutely. The analysis is pretty direct about this. It says his involvement now carries genuine executive weight.
Executive weight. That sounds serious. What does that look like on the ground?
Well, the analysis gives examples like producers literally adjusting the whole aesthetic of a project with him in mind, or record labels fighting over distribution rights for his singles. Even sound engineers are apparently studying his vocal style, not just to mix it, but specifically to capture its restraint and rawness. His specific sound is a key asset.
So his artistic identity itself has become a kind of currency.
Exactly. And you see it with brands too, right? Levi's, Tencent, The analysis says they're not just hiring a face, they're tying campaigns to his whole identity. He becomes a brand voice, embodying a certain philosophy they want to align with. It's way beyond just being a billboard.
Okay, so significant power domestically. But the analysis also talks about global magnetism, right? Which is interesting because he's not constantly, out there globally in the same way some stars are.
Right, and that's what's fascinating. The analysis points out how he achieves this reach. It's not through constant visibility or, oversharing. He communicates powerfully without overexposing himself.
So a lower profile, but bigger impact when he does make a move.
Yeah, the analysis calls his moves tectonic. That quietness seems to almost amplify things when he does engage internationally and makes people pay more attention.
Which might explain why, as the analysis suggests, international artists see him differently, not just as a potential collaborator for reach.
Exactly. They see him apparently as a unique kind of bridge, between East and West, but also between mainstream and underground visual art and music.
So bringing him onto a global project isn't just adding a verse.
It's inviting a philosophy. That's the phrase the analysis uses. It's about tapping into that whole package. The street culture roots, the precision, the quiet power, the traditional echoes.
Which brings us back to something you mentioned earlier, this idea of him being selective. The analysis really highlights this, doesn't it?
It does. It calls his selectivity refreshing in an era of excess. Which, feels right. There's so much content, so many collabs happening all the time.
He's not just jumping on every trend then.
Quite the opposite. The analysis has this great line. It says he makes the trends refine themselves before they reach him. Like there's a standard they have to meet.
Implying he sets a bar.
Yeah. And because of that, the analysis argues when he says yes, it means something. It resonates, not just with fans, but with critics, with the industry. That cosign carries real weight.
And that's where this idea of him being the filter comes in, right?
Exactly. It really lands there. He's not just part of what's next. He's actively shaping what gets seen as legitimate or important just by choosing where he puts his energy and his name.
Okay, so let's try and pull this together. From this deep dive, based on the analysis, Wang Yibo emerges as, well, not just a performer. He's a strategic collaborator, a cultural curator shifting perspectives.
An industry force with real executive weight, a global bridge connecting different worlds.
And maybe most distinctively, he does all this through this incredible selectivity, acting as this discerning filter in a really crowded landscape.
Mm-hmm. And understanding all that, it's not just about appreciating one artist, is it? It gives you, the listener, maybe some insight into how influence really works now in this digital age.
Right, the power of genuine cross-cultural exchange, maybe, when it's done thoughtfully.
Yeah, and the impact of, authenticity, or at least very carefully managed authenticity, how that can cut through all the noise out there.
Which leaves us with, I think, a really interesting question to mull over. In a world just saturated with partnerships, collabs often just designed for reach, for clicks, what is the power of a single, very selective cosign, like Wang Yibo's? What does that tell you about what really counts as artistic influence and cultural change today? What's the true currency?
Thanks for watching Asian Music Idol. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay updated with the hottest buzz in Asian pop culture.